My name is Darin Friedman. I'm a partner and a literary manager here at Management 360. I graduated Duke in 1999. While I was still a student in the summers, I had a few internships, and those were with production companies. I just came out here, and like anybody, you reach out to family, friends, and every resource you can, and I lined up a couple internships after sophomore year and then after junior year, which were amazing. And I just realized that's what I wanted to do. So when I graduated, I drove straight out here and got a job working at an agency, at a small talent agency called the Gersh Agency. And I knew I didn't want to work there, but it was a foot in the door, and it was a job that I was able to get while I was still on campus so that I could move here with a job. But the trend at the time that was happening was that there were management companies that were starting to get bigger and do a lot of producing. And producers, to me, with the exception of a few big name producers who were very busy all the time, were kind of waiting for somebody to call, or waiting for an actor to read a script, or waiting for financing to come through. And I didn't want to be in that position. So I wanted to be a producer, but I decided to pursue the management route because I felt like that would be a better way to have more control of my own destiny. Well, at the time when I graduated, management was a newer thing. Talent management historically was something that actors or stand-up comedians or more performers had. And that was because, a performer or an actor was more at the mercy of the industry, and they needed help shaping their craft or their act if they were stand-up, or their pitch if they were, had a sitcom. So the thing that shifted everything was literary management. Writers and directors having management was just didn't exist until probably the early 90s. But by the end of the 90s, it had become an established business, and the main way that managers differentiated themselves in the lives of the clients from agents was to be producerial and to be producers with them. So with a writer, you can see how that would be a much more useful relationship than an actor, because only like 10 actors in Hollywood are sort of value added as for producers. The rest are just casting. So unless you're a huge movie star, you're not really developing your own material. But as a writer or filmmaker, even if you were brand new, if you wrote a great script, then you could be overnight at the center of a really important project, because nobody cares if that great script was written by a first timer or not. So literary managers started to get a lot of power as producers because they controlled material. Mm-hmm. And that was the shift that happened. So by the end of the 90s, there were a few big companies that had sprung up that the business model was to be managers, talent managers and literary managers and producers all under one roof. They really feed each other. The producing that I'm doing, it gives me things to talk to my clients about and to bring them that they aren't seeing elsewhere. The management that I'm doing brings me relationships with filmmakers and writers to help the producing aspirations. So they really do feed each other. For me, I didn't really want to be in a transactional business where I was just making deals all day for writers, and so I really do like both. As I've grown my business, I've acquired a lot more clients, which has taken me away from the producing. So when I first started, I had no clients, and I was doing 100% of my time was spent on being entrepreneurial and coming up with new ideas and trying to make movies happen. But over the years, that's shifted drastically in the other direction because the clients take up a lot more time. So I don't want to say that I prefer one or the other, but the balance is what you really are gunning for. Well, this was a new company, and I was one of the first employees here, and this is 2002. They had a deal at Warner Brothers, a first look producing deal, like a lot of producers have. And under the terms of that deal, we were supposed to be bringing them a lot of, like any producer, you're trying to find books and articles and remake ideas and original ideas and short films and whatever you can find that could be the genesis of an idea. And just because we were so new, the company didn't hire somebody to do that job right away. It just took time to find somebody. So as an assistant, I started making that my like life. And so I was just finding great kernels of ideas and bringing them to our writers or bringing them to other managers here who could bring them to their writers. And I set up a bunch of projects right away. So I got promoted a year later in that producing capacity. Because I actually thought at the time, because I came out here from Duke thinking I want to be a producer, I don't want to be a manager. I want to work at a management company because I understand the value of that relationship. But my personal interest was in the producing side. So to me, that was like my dream scenario where I didn't have clients, but I was able to work with all the clients. And that lasted for 2 or 3 years until I just realized that I was talking to all these writers and working with them anyway, and it was a very natural shift. And for me, it was, it just was organic. So I represented one, I signed another, and then another, and I was doing the producing and management, but it just, like I said, over the years kind of tipped the scale in the other direction. Managers are thinking more longer term. So it's like, is that really the next right job? If that writer wants to be a director, but they're not really hireable today as a director, what are the steps over the next few years to become a director? If they're writing in TV, but they want to work in film, the agent's trying to keep them busy in TV, but they really want to be writing in film. What are we doing to help them get their film career going? So it's thinking more long-term about it. That's one generalization. And the other is we can produce and they can't. So that's why the producing is so essential, because if we're not acting as producing partners for them or in a producerial capacity, then we are just sort of another agent. And some days that is what we do, but most of the time, that's not why they hired us. We make it our business to know about every single great writer, director who's emerging so that we can make those introductions, tell them sort of who these people are that are breaking out. Every film festival, every screenwriting contest, every sort of moment where those things happen, we're just boots on the ground, and the clients really rely on us for that. You don't like leave it at the office. The market doesn't close, and especially because you're accessible on email all day long and all night, it's a kind of a 24/7 thing. And at the same time, even weekends or vacations, if I'm reading on a plane, I'm probably reading a script, or if I'm reading a magazine, I'm thinking, is this article a good idea for a movie? So it does sort of take over your life in that way. But that's also the upside, because your job is your life and your life becomes your job, and you have to find a balance. I don't stress about it too much. I try to enjoy it. I've been doing it long enough now to figure out how to do that. And we all work really hard, but we don't work as hard as like some people. I don't want any prize for like working 24/7, and hopefully you love it, because especially at the beginning when the hours are really long and the money's terrible and you're doing a lot of busy work and getting coffee and making copies and reading scripts, it's got to be for the love of it. Because if you're just doing it for a paycheck or for sort of like to kill time while you figure out what you really want to do, you could be doing anything else. So that's also my advice I try to give people. It's like, figure out early if you really love it, and if you don't love it, go do something else, because that's the only real driver for staying motivated. Or anybody really who wants to get into entertainment, I would just recommend not procrastinating, just coming out here and, like you did, getting an internship, anybody that will take you, getting in the door and working. And the primary reason for that is that there's really no shortcut. I think, my two pieces of advice are go, do it immediately, because you've got to put your time in. So you want to start as early as you can, but also if it's not working out, because you're putting your time in and that's sort of your pledging, to use a fraternity reference, jump and go do something else. Don't just wait in that spot, because that time early on is super valuable for finding a mentor and also for learning. So if you're at a place where you're not learning, you're not reading a lot of material, you're not listening to phone calls and reading files, and you've got to look at those early days as like grad school. And if you don't have the access and the motivation that comes from having landed in a good office with good people who have your back, then it's really not worthwhile. So I really recommend that, and you'll find out right away if it's for you, and if it is for you, then just stick to it.